So we're here in the B&O part of the Garrett County Historical Society's History Museum. We have featured here a painting that was painted by one of our local artists, Chip Evans, and it represents the soldiers waiting to go to war and those coming home during World War II. Next to that is a homemade steam engine, and it was made by our former county executive's father, and it was actually displayed at the World's Fair, but this is all handmade. And here, of course, we have the bust of the founder and of Garrett County, the president of the B&O Railroad at that time, and so this county was named in his honor. And finally, we have this beautiful, rather large eagle that was originally on top of our county courthouse. And you can just see it here, perhaps. And it was made of a material that didn't stand up well to the weather, but eventually it was taken down, and a better one, more ready for weather, was put in its place, and this was remade and presented to the museum. So one of the most well-known of the novels and books that were made in this county was 40 Years in the Life of a Hunter by Misak Browning. I kind of use the word sometimes referred to as literature, sometimes it's fiction. But it's well known, and it's a great read if you ever get a chance to read this. He was the son of Nancy Browning, who made this by hand, this quilt, around the turn of the 18th century into the 19th century. So it's quite old, and we're very proud to have that on display here. The Browning quilt, there are many other quilts that were handmade in this county, some dating as far ago as 125 years ago or longer, and these still stand the test of time. So in Garrett County, music has always been a tradition. We can start by looking at this wonderful record player that was Edison original. There's a picture here. And why Edison is special to us in Garrett County is he was one of the 4 vagabonds that used to come here camping with their entourage, and came here 2 different years. The others were Firestone, Ford, and Burroughs. Going then along this wall, you can see many musical instruments, parts of uniforms from many bands that have played in and around Oakland. They can be the school bands, or they could be association bands, or they could be just a boys band that you were getting together for fun. And this in particular, this drum is Mickey's Boys Band, and look at the beautiful painting on that drum. Now moving around to this rather imposing organ, it was developed by Noel Obersheim. He was somewhat of an inventor, and he worked at West Vaco, which is down along the Allegheny County area in the Potomac River. It was probably one of the first that had its own amplifier built into it. And it used glass discs. This is a fragment of one that was left. Now, as we talk about more music, we have a photo here of Ms. Rowan at this point, and her music stand, of course. And she wrote some great music that was played at Deer Park. One of them is this waltz. And when she got a little older, she got married, and she became Miss Resch. And for the occasion of President Cleveland coming here with his new bride, she wrote this grand march that was played on the piano or organ at the Deer Park. This dress was property of Bessie Ward Heinbaugh. She probably wore it to some of the events at Deer Park. And that's really noted is that she was really a terrific piano player. And she taught many musicians who went on to become famous. We have the pharmacist, Dr. Joseph Harned, and he wrote a fantastic book that was way ahead of its time. It was The Wildflowers of the Alleghenies. Nobody had ever cataloged it before, particularly to the Alleghenies, and he found some rare and unusual species that were developed. I remember hearing stories about how he would sit in this pharmacy and he'd be typing on his old upright typewriter to write this book. Here's a manuscript, original manuscript of that first book. So you can imagine how many pages he went through. Besides the words, he included sketches that were done for him, and this is an example of one that was hand-colored. There are several theaters in Garrett County. One was called the Empire Theater, and it was about half a block away from here, and it was in the Nally building. Then there was the same gentleman built up on 3rd Street, which is, unfortunately, it's burned, but he built the Maryland Theater, which would run different films. If you can catch back in here, there's Tammy and the Doctor. In the 2nd floor here, this portion going straight back was the Empire Theater, and it had an auditorium that could seat 250, and it also had a balcony. Prior to becoming the Empire Theater, it was called a Nickelodeon. But here is a side of a barn built around 1881, and it was, while the barn was later sold, these walls were preserved. And what you see here are carvings, and it's probably from the Jones raid that was in Oakland during the Civil War, because we have featured on the left is General Gordon, and then there's other generals and officers in military dress. Here's an early watercolor by a gentleman named Patton, and this is showing early 2nd Street. Located in this building right here today is the Garrett County Arts Council, and there's a gallery there now today. Mountain Lake Park was developed by Methodists out of Wheeling, and it was to be a Chautauqua, a genuine Chautauqua in that era. It was modeled after the one in upstate New York. One of the things they built here was a huge amphitheater. It was able to seat 5,000 people and had a stage that could seat 500 more people. And it was huge, but it was done without the benefit of any columns to intervene and capture the site, as you can see from this picture of the interior.